Hi, I'm going to talk to you about what makes a good short film. Even though short films are on a smaller budget, that doesn't mean the quality has to differ. These films aren't just about the strong dialogue, the visuals are just as important. Experiment with pure colour, text and sound. Take risks with the sound. Don't be afraid to use silences and music because they can help highlight a mood before a character even says anything. Consider replacing non-vital dialogue with pure reactions and other meaningful parts of the film. This would be important for a horror film so that it can detect the pure reactions of fear from the cast members, and this is evident with the Blair Witch Project. They tell a story of one character's or a couple's journey, but no more than that, because it can become a lot harder to have a clearer connection to a character if there's so many other stories to connect with. These shorts don't overreach. Remember, a short film is only a feature. It has little room for subplots, secondary characters, montages, or an epic scope. It covers a single dilemma and resolves in some way by the end. Too often, writers attempt to confront multiple dilemmas, introduce us to more than two main characters, or recreate a whole chunk of their feature film. A short is not the place to do that. It's the chance to attack one major scene or conflict, nothing more. Use available resources. Because of the short film, we won't have a huge budget like a Hollywood blockbuster. This is because we don't need to have huge explosions, car chases, spaceships or lasers. Instead, the drama and the tension comes from the highly personal stories that take place mostly in an enclosed environment, because those are the most easy to film in. Don't try to replicate films with budgets of hundreds of thousands of pounds, because we can't. Just make what you can and make it look as good as possible. This is by taking the time to research locations and costumes and making sure that it fits the criteria. So, for example, if I was going to make a Goodfellas style film, I would need to be able to then research the classic costumes that would come with it instead of trying to get the exact replicas instead, or making your own interpretation of what a gangster is in the 21st century. Give your character an objective. By having a strong personality for a character, it allows us to create a want and a goal for it. That way we'll care about them more and willingly want to follow them on their journey. Try and keep a theme synopsis of it being an optimistic ending, as the films that have the most positive outlook tend to be the most received. It's relatively easy to say something cynical about human nature or relationships or people's greed, but you can find something positive in even the darkest stories while still being true to your own vision. If you can leave the viewer with at least a moderately positive impression, they'll be more likely to remember your work instead of comparing it to all the other dramatic dark dramas that can be filmed. This isn't easy to say that you need to do an upbeat rom-com style to the ending of your story. That doesn't have to happen because that can end up with a cheesy ending. But I'm going to challenge myself to see if an ending can bring a more positive outlook than a downer. In the script, if you create memorable characters that demonstrate a unique perspective or a unique look on the world, it's more likely to be received better. And also demonstrate a personal connection, as it is more intriguing. And also, if you put that character in an unpredictable situation, you'll create a short film that everyone wants to see. Don't put an anxious character in an anxious situation. Try and create a medium. Be unique with the cinematography, be able to take risks. Obviously, between characters, use reaction shots. However, to show status, I could use a higher angle and a lower angle to show more of a whirlwind and more of the location, use more pans and even shots with the camera actually moving, like a tracking shot. It would become more interesting and more visually pleasing for the audience. When coming up with the narrative, think if the plot is becoming too over the top or too exaggerated. Follow a 4-step process. Whose story is it? What do they want? What's stopping them from getting it, and what's at stake? It then splits up the categories and is easy for us as writers to then create a story and a barrier. As the cinematography can actually highlight a lot of what we see as a society. So for example, if I have a lower class character, I may put at a high angle so that in fact the audience are of a higher status than that lower character. This can show themes and make it a stronger portrayal or outlook on a character. Character development is very important, so I personally think that by creating a profile for the character, it makes it easier for the actor to then come up with their own reasons why, but then as a cinematographer have an idea of what to capture. So for example, I think you should highlight name, appearance, traits, if that's the social, the psychological and the physical. Even link it to a character. So for example, their trait might be that they want to be a hero, so they quest on to see what they can do and what he can face. Or the trait could be that it could be bonding. At first, two people who have to work together despise each other, yet they learn to live with each other at the end and finally fall in love. Take the risk with locations. In fact, if you want to contact people, it's so easy to just get involved. In fact, it's all about promotion and advertising yourself to businesses if you want to use a location. However, I find with locations, sometimes it can be the most simple. You don't have to have a huge building with lots of space. Sometimes it can be the most simple things. But sometimes take a risk. Don't just go to a cafe or a house because it's not pushing you as a short filmmaker. Like Tarantino doesn't like to specifically follow the theme of the scene. Sometimes it's quite interesting to play against it. For example, in Reservoir Dogs, they have a bunch of gangsters sitting around a table talking about how they're not going to pay a tip to a waitress. It makes it more interesting and can highlight the qualities of the characters. So by looking at the dialogue, sometimes improvisation can be better because it allows the actor to show their connection and know their interpretation and a realistic portrayal of what they think the character is. Instead, sometimes if an actor becomes too overwhelmed with the script, it can become too over-rehearsed and doesn't feel genuine, which is important for acting for screen because we need those genuine reactions, especially within the eyes, because they tell all the story.